Hi everyone, how is it going?
Hey everyone.
Hi.
Here we are for another live stream. So I'm Matthias, publishing manager at Voodoo, and I have the pleasure today to be with Florian and Anthony.
Hi everybody.
Nice to meet you all. I'm Florian.
And I'm Anthony. So I'm in the launch ops from the very beginning, and I work on a lot of different games. And today I'm very, very happy to talk with you about some very important art tips that we use in our everyday works.
Yeah. And also, I'm a game artist for 2 years and more now at Voodoo. I worked in production team, and today I'm in the optimization team, and I have some cool tips too.
Okay, perfect. So I will share my screen. Click. Not sure. Okay, can everyone see it? Perfect. So today the topic we'll discuss is art in hyper-casual. The live stream aims to give concrete and practical tips and techniques for your games to be visually more efficient. As we know that most studios we work with don't necessarily have game artists, and the art is often casually done by developers with the help of the various existing Unity tools and the Unity Asset Store, of course. These tips and techniques are a sneak peek of the Voodoo Art Manual that we are unveiling today, and which contains even more tips on various optimization techniques for a clean and effective art. This guide is now available in the learning section of the Voodoo dashboard. At the end of the presentation, we will have the regular Q&A with Anthony and Florian, so feel free to ask precise questions about art. They will leverage their different experiences to answer. I will also give a quick update about iOS 14 as we receive many questions about this topic. Also, know that we will hold this live stream in Russian next Monday. Hopla. So without transition, jumping into it, from a purely publishing manager perspective, it's important not to forget what matters the most when creating a game. It's your core gameplay and how much newness you bring to the market when prototyping your games. This is what you should be obsessed with. Why is your game different from the games already on the market? What hasn't been done yet or hasn't been done before that you could create? In this scenario, art is a supportive and essential element in your core gameplay. The newer and the fresher the gameplay you've created is, the better you would like it to be perceived as such by the player. Here, art plays an important role. Art allows your gameplay to be showcased in the most efficient way. First, it will allow you to highlight the key core gameplay elements, character, obstacles, cubes here with Cube Surfer, the elements you play and interact with, and those which will set your performance in the game. Then, it allows to make the rules of the game super clear. In the game, but also, and very important, from the advertising. We often say that good games and promising prototypes that convert into hit games are those that can be played with the eyes from the ad video. Art will also help putting emphasis on the feeling provided by the game. Here in Cube Surfer, for example, with the nice feeling of vertical stacking, the size of the cubes, the animation, the light particles effect, everything here contributes to the nice feeling. When considering an artistic direction for your game, always consider the effort-impact ratio. You don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but you want your gameplay to be super clear. Often, good games have no themes, and this is, in my opinion, a shortcut to the core gameplay. You don't require from your players to understand the themes they're playing with. You directly immerse them into the core interaction suggested by your gameplay. If you take recent games like Stack Colors, Cube Surfer, Roof Rails, there is no strong theme, just a pure, raw core gameplay shaped with assets that make these games clear and appealing. Now, and more as a reminder, we'll now discuss the two main reasons why an ad viewer will click on your ads. The right one is The suggested gameplay looks fresh and super fun. This will lead to good CPI and good engagement. The wrong one is the visual effect is satisfying without considering the actual gameplay experience. This will lead to maybe a good CPI, but definitely not good engagement metrics. And this is why it has to be your first and main focus. This is at a 80% level, the element that will set the future success of your game. In this scenario, the player is already excited about playing this game, not just curious. He wants to live this experience because he understood and saw the fun potential of it. Remember, he already played with his eyes to the game when seeing the ad video. Going the wrong way, it will often create disappointment for the players, and you will waste your time developing a game with poor engagement metrics that will remain in 99% of the cases unsolved. If you manage to combine innovative core gameplay first and then satisfying visuals, this is the winning formula. It's always more valuable to begin by searching for your innovative core gameplay, as creating engaging gameplay will come along with a satisfying visual as an output. You can consider that satisfying visuals will come as a byproduct of the attractive experience. Now I will jump into concrete elements. I will kick off the tips and tricks part with my publisher tip for you to save time. And this is a tip that I often share with studios. This tips aims to provide a clear color palette to use for your games when you don't know what colors would be great for your game and you don't want to spend an extra day of development taking care of that. So this tip is relatively simple. There is a platform made by Adobe called Adobe Color, where you can just put a visual into the software. Like for example, a screenshot of a successful game currently in top charts, or a game you think has good contrast and good colors palette, okay? You upload the screenshot here, and then you can just place the target where you want to know the color coding of the color, okay? It will lead you to have like the whole color palette of the game. Then you can split your color palette in two main parts. First one is the key core gameplay element, okay? So here you only focus on the key core gameplay element. For Cube Surfer, the cube, for sure, that you have to collect in order to stack them. For sure, the obstacles, the off-white track, and the objective, that is here in green, like the same colors than the character. Then in the second part, you have the background color, okay? Here, we have more like a range of blues that lead to gray even, in order to make stand out all the key core gameplay elements. So thanks to this tip, you will have like the easy color code to use in your game, and you will maybe save time when it's time to color your game. And I will now let the professionals speak, passing the baton to Flo, I guess.
Yeah, thank you, Matthias. So as you begin to explain it, in hyper-casual art, it's really important, the most important thing, at least, that your visuals are focused on the gameplay events. And one big tool for that, the main subject is about contrast. One thing that you can do easily is, for example, taking a screenshot of your game and putting it in grayscale. It's a good start to see if the most contrasted elements will be the gameplay ones. For example, on the left, we have an environment that is cool, but the problem in this example is the fact that the trees are really bright and they are not a gameplay element at all. It could create noise or friction, and it will raise the recognition time. On the contrary, as you can see on the right side, the brightest element is the path on which the player is playing, and the darkest one are the rails. So here, the balance is really good with the background that is really grayish, and that lets the importance on the gameplay. only. You should always keep in mind that contrast can be applied in a lot of different ways. As you can imagine, you could use contrast by colors. I would recommend to do that after the grayscale because it adds more precision to your visuals. But it could also be, for example, saturation or even shades. You have your collectibles that are roundish, like the coins, but you could have the obstacle that contrasts by having a spiky shapes in red color. And the goal is really to lower the time of recognition from your player, because the lower this time will be, the lower will be your CPI, and this is really important. To achieve that, next slide, please. You will need the best tool possible. You will need the best shaders. I would recommend to go on the simpler ones. For example, usually people will tend to use the Unity standard shader, and it's really great. But the only issue is the fact that this shader has a lot of properties, because it's a shader that can achieve great results for like AAA games or console effects, you know, really advanced visual effects. And this is not something that you wanted to do in hyper casual. In hyper casual, you want your color to pop. And to achieve that, at Voodoo, we use these shaders that allow you to change the shadow color. And for example, if you have a shader like standard that uses the lightning setup from your scene, it could be an issue if you have 50 levels, for example, because you will have to update all the level by hands. Even if you try to copy paste from one scene, if you need to update it, you will need to update every level. So you should only rely on the material properties to achieve your best effect possible. And we'll share some package for it at the end of the talk. But now I'll let Anthony talk about UI.
Yeah, thanks for the mic, Flo. Now I would like to share with you some knowledge about UI, because it's very important. If you have a beautiful game, it's also very important to allow your players to play your game easily without friction or frustration. Of course, we notice that usually the UI does not improve the KPIs, but it's important to say that an unreadable user interface could damage the KPIs. So to avoid it, your buttons should look clickable, avoid exotic shapes or bubbles for main menus, except if you have a designer in your team, for example. And I also advise you to take care of the position of your elements. As you can see on the image, with the colored areas, the green area is the easiest for the player to click on, and you should always use a simple call to action, like here, the tap to start. On the hit game Aquapark, for example, a simple swap between two buttons has doubled the number of clicks. In the same way, you should always aim for a minimum of clicks by removing as many actions as possible before playing. And by the way, reduce the number of actions. This is very important in hyper casual UI. And to summarize all the stuff, the simpler is the UI, the longer is the playtime. And before the new slide, I have just a small tips to test your user experience. You just have to imagine your grandparents playing your game. Do they understand how to play quickly? Next slide, please. Okay, so on this slide, I have some tips about the experience that your game provides. You can help the CPI by adding water in your scene, and of course, it's not an exact science, but we have some story success on several games, like Spiral, as you can see on the GIF, also on All.io, Cube Surfer, Scribble Rider, Aquapark, etc., and a lot of other games, with several important uplift up to 20%. And my last tips about this slide is don't forget to reward your players by adding confetti, fireworks, gold coins, and a lot of other stuff very rewarding. It's very important to feel good, even if the player lose. And by doing that, your players are never disappointed and they have more chance to continue playing. And now I can pass the mic to Matthias.
Thanks a lot, Anthony. Thanks a lot. Those are very good and professional tips. Congrats. More like a takeaway slide. First takeaway would be, don't forget that art supports your gameplay. Do not base your game on a visual trick. Second takeaway would be, use the Florian's technique to assess your contrast. The output is big in terms of readability. Always assess the contrast of your games before submitting them. As a third takeaway, that would be to think about the user experience when developing the game. UI and touch zone are important elements to consider, and using proven patterns will make you save a lot of time. Do not reinvent the wheel for each new game. And finally, I will really invite you to discover the art manual that is on the dashboard. There are many more art and optimization techniques with even more details that you can benefit from. And that's about it for this live stream, guys. We'll now go to the Q&A part.
Thanks, Matthias.
I will stop sharing. Perfect. As an introduction of the Q&A, I'd like to kick off it by an important topic you are a lot to worry about: iOS 14 and the incoming changes for hypercasual. We have a lot of questions regarding iOS 14 and the IDFA changes. To sum up, in early spring, most probably in early March, we don't know the exact date yet, Apple will decrease the targeting power of ads on their devices using iOS. So you may have less precise targeting when it comes to deliver ads. The impact is for sure big for the mobile advertising world. Good news about this is we are working on it for weeks, and we get good results when it comes to simulate these future changes. We have, for example, good users opt-in rates. For hypercasual games specific, as you know well, we don't target specific audiences for our user acquisition. This is the very purpose of hypercasual games. So hypercasual games are appealing to the broadest possible audience, so likely no big impact on US side with this incoming changes, as we are not necessarily targeting for our user acquisition. In addition to that, we may have good surprises, as other gaming segments might also see hypercasual games as a more relevant segment to finding relevant gamers for their games. As you know, we are the entry market for bigger players LTV games like casual or mid-core games. Therefore, we can expect good levels of bidding by these actors in our inventories. It's better for them to target hyper-casual games than doing blind advertising. As a conclusion, I would say that the impact could be neutral or even positive for us. And we are working hard to have a seamless experience for you guys with these incoming changes. We'll get back to you as we go with these topics, and we will let you know the way our processes can be impacted, how to read UA figures, game stat, etc. If they are impacted. We'll let you know in any case. Maybe Flo and Anthony, you want to answer a very first question?
Yeah, we have some questions in the top chart. Flo, you want to take the first one?
Oh,
As you want about the reverse engineering?
yeah, I'm not sure the best suited for this kind of question. Maybe Matthias.
Okay.
It's about. I can read the question if you need.
So I have one actually. When a game fails at marketability CPI test, how do we know if it's because of the weak ID or the weak implementation? The former suggests to kill the game, the latter to iterate. If it fails to marketability test, usually it's because your gameplay is not fun enough, not engaging. Maybe it has been seen before on the market and nothing really exciting about it. So usual marketability and CPI is really the golden metrics that we are looking for. So usually I would recommend to really pass on another game, on another production, if your CPI is not relevant to iterate. So for example, if you have a CPI above 50 or 60 cents, you should consider creating a new and fresh games.
We have also an interesting question about the trend Do you think games like Among Us are bringing back a 2D retro feel to hyper casual art? It's very complicated to say because the trend can change tomorrow. But we know currently the 2D art is not in the trends at all. But we can try some stuff in 2D maybe.
Maybe Among Us will create some space for 2D games, but we didn't saw so much 2D games since I would say 2 years now, maybe more. But why not? Why not? It could be a new trend, but at the moment it's not the case.
It's very important to make the difference between the mechanic and the art, and I think in this kind of game it's more the mechanic.
Yeah, and
than
the
art.
virality, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. A new question about puzzle games. Do you think distraction is important in puzzle games? And I think it's directly related to the live stream we have shot last week. Very important question, and I think you mentioned the right word here, distraction. I think we see kind of a pattern when it comes to create puzzle games. Good puzzle games, like for example, Roller Splat or even Polysphere, have this distraction element that is very important and present in their games, indeed. Like, I would say that this distraction element is defined by the fact that you can't really lose in the game, but you will always try, fail, and learn. So each time you're performing an action in this game, you are learning and you are approaching a bit more the final solution. And I think this is very important. And the fact of approaching this solution at the end of the game makes the game very distractive. On top of that, in these games, often the visuals are super clear and neat, but you always have the thumb on the screen, stick on the screen, and you prefer to fail and learn, constantly learning on how to approach the best solution, rather than staring at your screen saying, okay, what's the best solution? If you have to stare at your screen saying, okay, what's the best solution? Your game is too system 2, and you should consider make the game simple. And if you take games like, once again, Roller Splat or Polysphere, you never say, okay, what's the solution? You are constantly trying in order to reach the final solution and to win. And I think this distraction aspect is a good pattern for good puzzle games.
I see a very cool question about reference. So the question is, how important do you think it is to use references when creating prototypes? I think it's really, really important. In fact, you should always seek for reference, because this can be a lot of time that you will gain in the end. It's you will not create something from nowhere. A lot of things have already been tested. So you should definitely seek for reference before trying to work on a prototype. Yeah.
Yeah, benchmark the market is very important. We do that in every project.
Yeah, and on a weekly basis.
Yes, weekly basis. Yes, very important to benchmark and take reference around the market.
Even in other fields, don't reduce your seek on hyper casual games. It's the one to search for, but you should be inspired by other fields too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, really good tips. There is a question about, do you have any tips on reverse engineering current and past hits to find new ideas? I don't know what exactly you mean by reverse engineering, but I think indeed being able to reuse some mechanics, shape differently, adding always on top of the mechanic another mechanic is a good technique. For example, we have seen the great rolling games in the chart currently named High Heels. This is a direct combination of two gameplays that we have released earlier in 2020 with CubeSurfer and Roof Rails. Okay, this really mix up these two gameplay in a nice way, and it seems to work well. So I think this is a way you can find like new and fresh ideas. I think here it's very important to mix the mechanic and to create a whole new gameplay from these two mechanics. Otherwise, if you just take a mechanic that already exists and you just shape it differently with, for example, new art, it will likely not work. So yeah, definitely. We also shot a live stream last year called Converting Ad Viewers into Gamers that you can find on the dashboard, where we give 5 ideation techniques for you to find relevant ideas based on the current markets. For example, you have a technique called gameplay extraction, where the goal is to extract a gameplay from double or triple A games. Okay, there is a technique called UGC and modding, where the goal is really to go and find games with big user-generated content database like Roblox or even Minecraft, try the different games created by the users of this platform and try to adapt some interesting mechanic into hyper-casual. Modding is also like a big world of discovery if you want to find new mechanic. You can start from a specific tech, like the very great game that hit the market last year, Quick Draw, on Draw It by Quali, I think. So yeah, I think the various technique and reverse engineering is definitely one of them.
We have another interesting question about Archer Labs. When choosing a palette from a screenshot, these colors are interacting with light, so the results aren't the same when implementing. How can deal with this to have the same results? I think the shadows, as you mentioned, Florian,
yeah, exactly.
are very useful for that.
Exactly.
Yes.
But basically, the issue you're reporting here is what I was saying. The standard Unity shader will be affected by light because it's like a PBR rendering. And this is not going to happen with a slider ramp because this is more cartoonish shader.
Yeah.
So you will have exactly the color that you want it to have. And this is why we're working with this kind of shader.
Yeah, it's very simple to explain. As you said, if your colors are not the same, it's because of the shadow on the material. And in the Launchers materials that you can find in the art manual, you can manage the shadow color directly on the material, so you can have the same color as in the reference.
Yeah, really great tip. I really invite you guys to download this art manual and to get the tips out of it. Maybe one last question. Do you have any tips when it comes to learning from our mistakes? So here, I think it's very important indeed to have a critical analysis of your games when you have tested them on the dashboard. And one way to do this by your own is really to take all the essential guidelines that we often share, the general guidelines of hyper-casual games like System 1, System 2, is my game YouTubeable, is my game snackable, and to really do, maybe not right after the test, but some weeks after the test, in order to say, okay, is my game YouTubeable, and how much compared to games that are currently in top chart? Is my game snackable, and how much compared to a game that I found very snackable in the current top chart? And always try to assess the level of the different guidelines that we share for your games. And based on this, you will be able to do your own critical analysis of the games that you have tested on the dashboard.
Yeah, when we create a feature in our team, for example, if this feature fails, it's a waste of time to spend more time on create an iteration of this feature and another iteration, and it's also fail. The best way is to create an other disruptive feature and try something new to avoid wasting time.
Okay, really interesting. I think we are done, guys.
Max, we maybe have a question regarding the resources. Where do the people can find the resources on the dashboard?
It's in Zendesk directly in the learning section. You will find like the learning section on the left of the dashboard. I think there is a whole learning section where you can find all the live streams on some resources, and the art manual has been unveiled, I think today. On the dashboard you will find it.
Yeah, the resources are at the last page of the Voodoo art manual. You have a small link at the end of the page. You just have to click on it and you will be redirected to the resources.
Perfect. Hope you will use it. Hope you have enjoyed this live stream as well. And in any case, we'll do another live stream next week. Have a great time, guys. Thanks a lot, Florian and Anthony.
Thank you.